Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the June 24th, 2025 meeting of the Shrewsbury Select Board. We will start with introducing the board and staff members present. I am Teresa Flynn.
Carlos Garcia.
Beth Cassavant.
Oh, Greg Richards.
Michelle Conlon.
Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager.
Justin Dobson, Assistant to Town Manager.
The first item on our agenda is to approve the bills, payrolls, and warrants.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Item number 2 is to review and act to approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2025 meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Item number 3 is announcements and reports. Any board members have any announcements or?
Madam Chair, I have two quick ones. As we all can feel, it's extremely hot outside. As temperatures remain high, I'm encouraging folks to do their due diligence to stay cool and stay hydrated. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke can creep up on us, so please be mindful of your body as you go about your day. And if you can stay out of the heat, then please do so. I'm also encouraging folks to check in on their friends and neighbors, especially those who are more vulnerable to rising temperatures, such as our seniors, children, and pregnant women. I understand that our senior center has been used in the past as a cooling center, but if you are outside of the community and need a cool place to go, folks can call 211 to find locations for cooling centers near them. The next one that I have is for Pride at the Park. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee will be hosting their second annual Pride event on this Friday, June 27th from 2 to 5 p.m. at Dean Park. There will be free ice cream, music, arts and crafts, as well as information and resources provided by Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. It's the last weekend of Pride, so I encourage folks to stop by. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, item number 4 is the town manager's report.
I don't have anything this evening.
Okay. Item number 5 is public comment pursuant to Select Board Policy 31 to offer citizens the opportunity to provide public comments during Select Board meetings on matters within the board's authority. And we do have a resident that has asked to speak tonight. Ms. Boris, if you'd like to come up.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks for being here. If you could just state your name and your address and then whatever your comments are.
Sure. Is this being recorded or not? We're being recorded.
It is.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for agreeing to hear. So, good evening, members of the Select Board and fellow Shrewsbury residents. My name is Julie Boris, and I'm here today to voice my deep concerns regarding the source of funding for item 12 on tonight's agenda, to review and enact on intermunicipal agreement for public health services with the towns of Grafton and West Boylston. First, let me say I am glad we are having a conversation about shaking up the public health system. It's about time we question and critically assess the state's increasing overreach in this area. And I'm not opposed to the idea of a regional collaboration or sharing resources between neighboring towns. I understand the potential benefits of pooling resources and maximizing efficiency. However, with this intermunicipal agreement for the Regional Alliance, we are taking a first step down a path towards a much bigger issue that I don't think anyone's talking about. Once the IMAs are all signed, this new Regional Alliance plans to apply for Public Health Excellent Grant funding. And this grant program comes with some very concerning strings attached. And I firmly believe those strings are simply too high of a price for us to pay. This grant, while it may seem enticing, it is a lot of money. It's not just about agreeing to shared services. We will be agreeing to everything in the SAFE law, the law which enabled this grant process, and it includes dangerously broad language. And in order to get this law passed, it was buried in a 320-page economic development bill and passed in spite of significant opposition. Many lawmakers did not even know or understand what was in it, and I really think that this kind of legislative maneuvering should raise alarm bells. We are also agreeing to everything in the special contract conditions in the 26 engagement scope document, which lays out what we're agreeing to comply with Mass DPH. And we also will be agreeing to all the guidelines set out in the 2019 Blueprint for Public Health. The blueprint aims to standardize public health practices using national standards, particularly the foundational public health services. And these public health services are built on CDC-originated concepts, they're endorsed by the CDC, and they are increasingly used as a national standard to justify public health regulations and funding. So this is, status quo from the CDC. After the harmful mandates and COVID countermeasures that were not based on sound science or data, yet they drastically and negatively affected the livelihoods and health of countless people, we should be extremely cautious about what we are signing up for. Trust in public health and trust in the CDC are at an all-time low for good reason. So in plain English, if we take the grant money, we lose local control in public health decision-making. Towns must comply with top-down standards. Some of them are vague standards like 21st century public health challenges, standards defined nowhere and subject to constant change. We are taking short-term funding for a long-term cost. The grant funding is only committed through 27. So after that, where does the money come from? And if there isn't another grant, will the taxpayers be left footing the bill to maintain programs and hired staff under this grant? We are agreeing to mandatory credentialing and workforce training. The blueprint recommends setting training and credentialing standards for all local public health workers, which sounds good, right? But unfortunately, these standards align with national pro-pharmaceutical, pro-mandate ideologies like vaccination, masking, fluoridation, pesticide spraying, etc., all public health agendas that I would argue do the opposite of improving public health. I actually signed up to see some of the training courses with my own eyes, and I can confirm that they read like marketing for Big Pharma's agenda. We are agreeing to data collection and tracking. The blueprint calls for statewide surveillance systems and report cards that really could invade people's privacy. I don't want to be tracked and traced personally. There are no protections for individual rights. There's no mention of informed consent, personal choice, lessons learned from the harmful pandemic mandates. One particularly concerning section of this SAFE law states, this is what really scares me. If an outbreak of disease or healthcare situation important to the public health occurs, as determined by the commissioner, and that means the commissioner of the Department of Public Health, or the commissioner of environmental protection, affecting more than one board of health, the department may, and I'm skipping a little bit here to get to the point, organize the public health response. So that's dangerously broad language that's codified into law and that we're going to need to comply with should we take grant funding. So it's any disease, any healthcare situation important to the public health, as determined by one of two appointed people, not even elected, and they may organize the public health response. So what does that mean? Masking, tracking, school and business shutdowns, more mandated liability-free injections. And the most troubling is the lack of public input before agreeing to the conditions set out by the Public Health Excellence Grant. This is a grant program. It is not just like another funding opportunity. It's not a new road. It's not a school program. Under the SAFE framework, public health decisions could be directed by state or federal authorities without the checks and balances of our local control. I want to see local control remain local. So this just doesn't feel like it's about public health. It feels like it's about government control. Lastly, it is important to recognize the influence of the powerful corporate interests behind the SAFE law. The nonprofits advocating for this law were funded by corporations like Moderna, AstraZeneca, major hospitals, and insurance companies, all of whom stand to benefit from a more centralized, top-down health policy structure. These entities are not driven by public health, but they're driven by shareholder profits, and we shouldn't allow their influence to dictate our local health policies. So I urge the board to take a step back and carefully consider the long-term consequences of opting into a state grant to fund this regional alliance. This is a national policy. It is not about local needs. And I ask that you bring this grant application and all that it entails, all of the documents that we would be agreeing to the public's attention, hold a public hearing, and put it to a town-wide vote. If the town votes for this, they want to opt in, cool, I get it, right? But if they don't, I think this needs to be, like, this isn't, again, just like another, I understand you guys have a really hard job, you do a ton of really important stuff, but I really think we need to look into this and really see what we're agreeing to in all of these documents, because I don't feel comfortable at all with the way that things are playing out. So that is my piece. I just think the cost is too high for the amount of money that we will receive, and grant funding always comes with strings attached, and I don't think these strings are being given the attention that they deserve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Appreciate your
questions for
comments.
anybody?
No comments. As you
Okay.
noted, it is an agenda item, so you're free to stay and listen to our discussion around it, or, as we said, the meeting is recorded, so you can watch it at a later time and reach out with any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to submit this stuff to you, which is just kind of a top concerns sheet. And then also this book, I've given it to the Board of Health as well, and I gave it to Kevin Miskar. So is there someone I can say? Oh, thank you. And I just really think, like, we need to look into some of the policies and how they harmed people. And so I just like to share this book with you.
Thank you.
Because it's powerful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Item number 6 on our agenda is a 7:05 public hearing to review and act on the common vitular license application of James Holt on behalf of Honeygrow LLC, DBA Honeygrow, 193 Boston Turnpike. And I believe Mr. Holt is joining us virtually.
Correct.
Mr. Holt, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Great.
I also have Brian with me as well. He's called in separately. He is the district manager that would cover the Shrewsbury store.
Great, thank you. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your business. We have your application, and I believe all the board members have reviewed it, and we can ask you any questions that we have.
Okay. So Honeygrow is a quick service restaurant founded and headquartered out of Philadelphia. We currently have 60 locations, all in the Northeast. A couple of our most successful stores are actually in the Massachusetts Boston market, in Fenway and Seaport. It's definitely an area we want to focus on and build out more of a market. Honeygrow is a salad stir fry concept based on local, healthier options. Maybe Brian, you can step in on the.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you kind of hit it on the head. Where, our main thing is stir fries, but we also do salads, and we offer a lot of customization on our menu as well. We have touchscreen kiosks for ordering, and we have our own app and website, and offer third-party delivery as well. So we have many different ways people can enjoy Honeygrow or order with us, or they can come to us, or we'll go to you. And we're really excited to come open up in the Shrewsbury market.
Great, thank you. Board members, any comments or questions? I know your application states your hours of operation are going to be 10:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Just curious, and I apologize if I missed this. When is your opening date?
The planned opening date right now is 7/5. We have a health inspection tomorrow morning. If that all goes well, we'll have our food delivery and commence training.
Well, I, for one, am very excited. I know others are as well.
Did you say
Feel
it
free to
opens
come.
on 7:05?
I thought you said 7/5, right? July 5th?
Correct, yeah.
But I thought the sign that I saw at Lake Grade today said Friday. Like
Oh.
six
It
twenty-seven.
was supposed to be Friday. We had a little delay in closing out some of our permits,
Ah,
Yeah, so don't go running.
but
down
it's
the
since
road.
been done.
okay. Gotta change the sign.
Yeah.
I was just there a few hours ago. I
in the
was so
way.
excited.
We're working on that, but with the heat today, having a hard time finding someone to go up there and
I'm
take
kidding.
it down. But
I was kidding.
we're working on it.
I just saw the sign. I'll make an alternate
Yeah.
plan for where to eat on Friday. It's okay.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would wish to speak? And if not, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the common victuals license application of James Holt on behalf of Honeygrow LLC, DBA Honeygrow 193 Boston Turnpike.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion passes. Thank you so much. Best of luck.
Thank you.
You will definitely be
Yeah,
seeing
appreciate
some of
it.
us very soon.
Yeah. Welcome to Shrewsbury.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, we're good. Item number 7 on our agenda is a 7:10 PM public hearing to review and act on the storage tank license of Brandy Lehman on behalf of 7-Eleven Inc., DBA Sunoco, 524 Boston Turnpike. And Brandy Lehman, Lehman or Lehman? I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
It's layman, but it's totally fine.
Layman,
Yep.
apologies.
Yep.
So my understanding is you're the Regional Gasoline Environmental Compliance Manager for 7-Eleven. So thanks for joining us today. So our understanding is that 7-Eleven acquired the Sunoco gas station convenience store location from a prior owner. And when a new entity acquires a property with an underground storage tank, a new storage tank license must be applied for to reflect the updated ownership. So no proposed changes to the operation of the location or the quantities of flammable materials being stored. Is my understanding correct, Mr. Muzakarov, that this is merely reflecting a change in ownership?
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. Lehman, anything else that you care to share at this time?
No, that about covers it. We were leasing the property prior, and then we purchased it from the prior property owner, I think in December. So that's the need for the change in the license.
Okay.
But yeah, the storage tanks, everything's the same. No updates or changes to the site.
Great. We've received all the required materials. Town staff has reviewed them. Board members, any questions or comments? This is a public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to say anything? Okay.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the storage tank license of Brandy Lehman on behalf of 7-Eleven Inc., doing business as Sunoco 524 Boston Turnpike.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8 is a meeting with attorney Margot Gillis on behalf of Burton's Grill of Shrewsbury LLC, DBA Burton's Bar and Grill, 193 Boston Turnpike, regarding a change of LLC manager's application to their Section 12 all alcohol pouring license. Is Ms. Gillis here remotely?
Hi, I'm here virtually.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today. So,
Yes.
board members, there are no changes to the operations of the business. The application is being submitted to update the corporate structure information associated with the alcohol license. Ms. Gillis, do you want to explain to us what that is?
Sure. Yeah, so this change is largely administrative and it will not affect the day-to-day operations of the license, as you said. So there are 5 current LLC managers and 3 of them are being removed. And then the other 2 that have been previously approved by this board and the ABCC are remaining on the license. So we're just removing 3.
Board members, any questions, comments?
Straightforward.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the change of LLC manager's application of attorney Margot Gillis on behalf of Burton's Grill of Shrewsbury LLC, DBA Burton's Bar and Grill.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Item number 10 is an update on the town manager's goals. Mr. Mizikar, turn it over to you.
You missed 9.
Oh, did I miss 9?
Yep.
Oh, geez, I'm so sorry.
It's like,
I swear that was not intentional. Agenda item number 9 is a meeting with Mr. Richard Ricker regarding the Shrewsbury Housing Authority pilot program, and we have another special guest with us. So
It's all because I didn't wear a tie, isn't it?
exactly. It's moving too fast. I apologize. You were standing right in front of me too.
And Richard is here, but I'm also here. Weren't sure I'd be able to be here, but I'm Kathy McSweeney. I'm the current chair of the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, and Richard is our treasurer. So we are here to present our pilot check, our payment in lieu of taxes, check in the amount of $52,450.48. And if I may, I'd like to give a little update on what the Housing Authority's been working on. As you all know, we work independently from the town and don't receive any funding from the town. Our funding comes from the federal and state. And we're unique to other housing authorities throughout the Commonwealth in that we do have federal property and we have state property. So our federal property are the towers on North Quincy. We have 99 units there. On Francis Gardens, we have 100 units. We have 36 at Elizabeth Street, and we have 26 units spread out throughout town. We also manage 177 Section 8 vouchers each month throughout the town. In an effort to be a good neighbor, we're offering our pilot check. We also work with the Council on Aging and contribute towards their van that does do some transportation for the elderly throughout town. And a couple of other programs we're working on. Want to take a moment to recognize our executive director, Kelly Bergeron, who is doing an outstanding job and working very hard to build liaisons with the Council on Aging and Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. So we're looking forward to being able to offer some additional services. We always like to tell you a little bit about what we do as far as capital projects to improve our facilities. And this year, those included exterior doors on all buildings and community room windows at Francis Gardens, low flow toilets at Francis Gardens, a drainage system at our Lake Street property. We did insulation in all our state properties. We did a new patio at the towers, and we did a generator. We're working on a generator at the towers. The one that was there was original to when the building was built, so we're pleased to be able to update that. Our biggest project, the one that's been taking up the most of our time, is what we hope will be expansion of our Elizabeth Gardens property. We have some additional land down there, and we have started working on what hopefully will allow us to build some additional property. So just to start, we've been working on it since '23, but just to take it from the top to fill everyone in. The land was identified, and we realized we might be able to do some building there. So out of our reserves, we spent $5,600 to do a survey. And then the second step in that process would have been a feasibility study and a conceptual design. We did an eligibility application and funding request through CPC. CPC did deem the project to be eligible, but in conjunction with that, we worked with Affordable Housing Trust. And Affordable Housing Trust came forward and said they would pay the $7,000, which allowed us to speed up the process. So we were pleased to work with that partnership. From that, we received our conceptual plan, which it appears that we could build 11 buildings, which would be 22 properties down there. There is an adjacent piece of land which is owned by the town of Shrewsbury. It's 1.2 acres, so we would like to have a follow-up discussion about that.
We'd like to come back and see.
Because that would allow us potentially to build 4 to 8 more buildings down there and expand the project either further. So we'll come back to that, but I just wanted to bring it up. Our next step in this process is 6 individual items that have to take place. We have submitted, and I'm happy to go into detail on what they are, existing survey properties, existing conditions property survey, some field testing, a traffic study, stormwater permits, site plan and engineering design, and the stormwater permit. The cost for that, the ballpark quote we received was $86,000. So again, we did a CPC eligibility request along with funding. CPC did deem the project to be eligible, so it would go to town meeting. Again, Affordable Housing Trust has come forward and offered to fund voted to fund 2 steps in that, which would be the existing condition survey and the field testing. So we're starting that process now. One of them's $15,000, so we do need to go out to bid. The other one's $3,000, so we're gonna work on that, getting those projects rolling. We had a meeting just this morning with State Senator Moore and Rep. Hannah Kane to talk to them about ways we could potentially fund this project. So that's sort of the big picture item, but we're happy to entertain any questions you might have. And do you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add, thank you to the chair and members, Richard Ricker, for the record. The fact is that over my many years on the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, I've seen and heard from many, many people that we lack affordable family housing. And it is just such a huge problem everywhere, but we have that problem here in Shrewsbury too. So even people that have worked for the town over the years have found themselves unable to afford to remain in Shrewsbury and to live here and to own a house or to even rent, because as we all know, rents are outrageous too these days. So our intent and our goal is to provide additional family housing. And we hope that we will come back and see you again and obviously ask for more assistance as we move forward. We were encouraged with our meeting today with Senator Moore and Representative Kane, and we look forward to working with them and with you. And we're happy to give you this $50-some-odd thousand, but I gotta tell you, we were gonna take it back.
Thank you, sir. Justin gets the books, I get the checks.
Yeah.
But we're excited. We know it's nice that we found the property, that we had the property. We're excited to move forward on this. We think it's a good, it's a wonderful thing to move forward with, and I hope you agree.
Thank you so much. Board members, any comments, questions?
I'm happy to go first.
Good.
Ms. McSweeney and Mr. Ricker, thank you both for being here, and Mr. Campanello and the entire Shrewsbury Housing Authority. Kelly, I mean, your entire team is incredible. I watch your meetings. And being the board's designee to the Affordable Housing Trust, I am encouraged and excited about your project. You know, as you said, these will truly be affordable family housing, and you know that aligns with both of our missions. And so we were proud to support the project, you know, through a few steps, and you know we'll be partners with you. I expect we'll be partners with you through the entire process. But really appreciate you for the entire work that you do for our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your help and support on Affordable Housing Trust. That's been
Yes.
very valuable.
Yes, thank you.
Just a question, and of course, I echo Mr. Garcia's gratitude for the work that you do to provide affordable housing for residents in Shrewsbury. You talked about the towers being a federally funded building. I know there have been reductions in federal funding. Has that impacted the tower at all? Are you concerned that it could? How's that? Just what can you share on that?
We have added to our agenda a monthly update. If there are, and as of yet, there are no specific things that would affect our funding. Are we concerned that that could happen at any point? Yes, but there's nothing official as of our last meeting.
And I would also add that we have been through this before. During my tenure, I've been on the board now for longer than I want to say, but we've been through these types of problems, I should say, with questions about funding going forward before, and we do have some reserves in place. We've, over the years, been resourceful in terms of we get revenue from antennas on our tower. That money is reserved for the federal project, so we do have some reserves there that we've used in the past to cushion just this type of a problem. And we expect that if that does come up again, then we'll have some way to deal with it. In the past, I will tell you that we got noticed from the federal government to turn in those reserves and to use them instead of receiving funding. So it's not something we're not prepared for.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Echo the comments. Thank you for all you do. Sincerely, you and the rest of your committee. It's greatly appreciated, and thank you for taking the time to come in and provide us with these updates.
I will share one thing, if I could. We had a recent success story. A family that lived in one of our family units just moved out because they bought a house. And that's really what it's all about. So that's why we do the work that we do.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you for having us. Thank
Apologies
you.
again for
No
It's the
problem.
ties.
trying. It's
Thank
not
you
the
very
tie.
much. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay. We may now move to agenda item number 10, Mr. Mizikar.
Great.
Update on town manager's goals.
So as Mr. Dobson pulls up the slideshow, I first want to take just a quick step back because I changed the structure of how I set goals this year and moved to a shorter cycle, giving us an opportunity to, I think, be more transparent and make changes throughout the course of the year based upon the changes that are before us. It's hard to predict the responsibilities of the office throughout the course of an entire year. And I think this 12-week goal cycle, as it was intended, allowed us to not only be flexible, but accomplish more than maybe we would have in past years if we would have solely looked at the 12 months ahead rather than trying to be more efficient with our time and more strategic with our time and set 12-week goals. So Justin, if you could move ahead. So I had 3 separate 12-week cycles throughout the course of the fiscal year. And the last one wrapped up on May 6th, and I'm certainly delayed in getting back to the board with that update. And one thing that I did learn throughout the course of the year is that there takes some time between the 12-week cycles to be able to update the board and get new priorities focused. And certainly don't need as many weeks as I've took between now and May 6th, but we had a lot of challenges and other regular cyclical things between town meeting and other things happening in late May and into early June. So I'm happy to provide the report this evening. Justin, if you can go 2 slides ahead. So we started the year with the broad goals of the town manager's office, which are tying to various aspects of the strategic plan. These are very straightforward and broad, given the responsibilities of myself. And that was another initiative that we were focusing on this year, was my work directly and not necessarily the broad work that happens throughout the different aspects of the organization. So fiscal sustainability and resource management, trust, community engagement, communication, organizational culture, and workforce development. Justin, you can proceed. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and efficiency and innovation in operations. So next slide. I started the first 12 weeks in 3 core objective areas: organizational culture, trust, community engagement and communication, organization development planning. Next slide. Within the first area, establishing regular organization-wide updates and focusing back on the values associated with the 2023 strategic plan. Within trust, establishing regular town manager office hours, taking a more active role in major initiatives, and enhancing insight into operations through the Slack board. And then finally, staffing needs assessment, completing the DPW director's recruitment, which was vacant at the start of the fiscal year, and identifying areas for formal strategies with the board and moving those forward. Within segment 2, there was 2 focus areas: the creation of an economic development strategy and getting the Shrewsbury Development Corporation up and running and supporting the board in that initiative, and then conducting a more comprehensive analysis of our core infrastructure, which was receiving updates on water and sewer capacity analysis and engaging with the Westboro Sewer Treatment Plan on future capacity needs. And then finally, within segment 3, There was 2 focus areas with 1 single objective: financial sustainability and resource management, efficiency and innovation and operations. So what I was really looking to complete in the last 12 weeks section is what ways can we look at the organization differently? How can we look at our operations internally and externally to find cost savings? It became really clear throughout the budget process that we are in a inflated cost cycle, and we are going to have to think about how we operate differently in order to provide any opportunities for us to move forward with the strategic objectives that we all wish to get through. And we looked at internal areas for improvement and cost-saving opportunities, which I'll talk a little bit about, business process improvements and automation potential, shared service assessment with regional partners, and then a prioritized implementation plan for sustainable cost mitigation. So next slide. So updates on some of those areas, on the things that we worked on and accomplished. So with initial picture for internal areas for improvement and cost-saving opportunities, we implemented a new asset management plan, which is rather comprehensive and will integrate into our OpenGov system. It will allow us to better track all assets of the community, including things like the pavement and management index, underground infrastructure, and allow us to really assess and understand the impact of any changes in that core infrastructure, including the accelerated deterioration of pavement management conditions through trench openings, costs associated with those, and will allow us to be more forward-thinking whenever changes need to be made to our infrastructure, not only aging infrastructure, but things that impact our infrastructure. And then we started to explore information technology as an area for cost savings and consolidation. We had robust conversations about cybersecurity and cross-collaboration between what are really 2 separate entities within the organization. The school department IT and Selco IT, which services Selco and the town. Business process improvements and automation potential. We continued and finalized field staff work process automation. This will allow us to have every field inspector, whether it's a planning board inspector or building inspector's office, to have continual access to the town's network through iPads, and allow them to update their work in the field rather than making notes in the field and coming back to the office and updating the system once they're back. We kicked off a customer service standardization initiative, which seeks to leverage common information across the organization to first put customer service standards in place and then explore consolidation. We continue to work within our enterprise resource management program to automate accounts payable processes and human capital management processes, including payroll. We are extremely human-centered in these operations, and we've been working diligently with our service provider, Munis, to fully utilize the resources that we're already paying for to digitize these processes and not only reduce the time that it takes, but the resources that it takes to complete them. And then we're also exploring opportunities for better meeting management. This is an area that we're actively but conservatively looking at artificial intelligence to be able to support our business processes. So we spend a lot of resources in supporting a variety of boards and committees. We're still very traditional in our minute taking process, and technology is moving forward to hopefully not necessarily eliminate the need for a staff member to be at the meetings, but automate that process. We have a lot of staff support that while individuals may attend the meeting, they still often have to go back and rewatch the meeting again and watch the video and then create the minutes because, capturing the essence of a conversation sometimes means that you have to hear the whole conversation and then put it into the minutes. So we're exploring that opportunity. We've talked probably most in public about public health services and emergency communication services. So we're moving in a different direction with public health services. We further solidified opportunities, and we have an intermunicipal agreement before you this evening to take the lead in a new shared service arrangement with the towns of Grafton and Westboro, and be the lead entity with regards to that. And then emergency communication services, we reinstituted our investigation into consolidating those services, both internally to the town through unified dispatch and with regional partners, some who are out ahead of us, to explore that opportunity, which provides cost savings in both the near and long term that would be valuable to rededicate to other purposes. Not only within public safety, but other aspects of the organization. So then I was charged with coming up with a prioritized implementation plan for sustainable cost mitigation. So we did call together and receive interest from employees across the organization to develop an AI working group to be able to integrate safe and standard practices whenever we explore AI as a technology across any of these business process improvements. And we are working very diligently on our public dashboard as an initiative to be transparent across all these opportunities. And we did a survey and began work on continuous improvement across the organization. We started with a survey of all staff, asked them for challenges that they're facing in their business processes, and began to explore some opportunities, some of which are identified above, like accounts payable and some of our human resource processes. So, Justin, if you can then move to the next slide. So that was a big exploration phase for us over the last 12-week period, and the first segment of fiscal year 2026 needs to be much more tangible in developing actual outcomes from those investigations. We're grateful to receive $250,000 from town meeting in an appropriation to be able to implement some of the work that was identified that we can take on to provide sustainable long-term cost savings and cost reallocations within town operations. So key priorities for the first 12 weeks is to finalize the public health shared service arrangement, develop a core framework for the customer service standards and optimization initiative. We will share that with the board. We'll share, obviously, all of this with the board. Explore that information technology management consolidation. In the past phase, we had great conversations. We developed a common IT policy and computer use policy or technology use policy, and we will be beginning formal conversations about what opportunities and actual consolidation may be possible. And then the second key priority to actually make accomplishments toward is the emergency medical services program. We started work on that. It wasn't part of the initiative, but as we talked with the fire chief over the last 12-week period, it became clear that in order to begin to implement an EMS service program within a reasonable time frame while we are still under agreement with Worcester Emergency Medical Services, our current provider, that we needed to get moving. So at the end of this 12-week period, we'll be presenting the board with an initial operating model and staffing plan that we would need to be able to implement an EMS services program, along with financial model that would accompany that plan. So I don't want to gloss over the segment 3 update. So Justin, if you can go back to the previous slide, I'm happy to get a little bit deeper into any of this work and what was explored in any of these 4 different areas that we worked on over the last 12 weeks, or that 12-week period that was identified, continuing on through this meeting, and then how we'll actually take that information and roll it forward into the first 12-week cycle in fiscal year 26. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Board members?
I have some questions. So Kevin, I guess, is there metrics? I mean, did you have like a target ROI on some of these? For instance, you talk about like automating processes around Munis. Is there like a reduction of FTEs that you're seeking to achieve with some of these that's documented, or is that exist someplace?
So I don't have I don't necessarily have a targeted reduction of FTE that we're trying to gain from it. But what I know right now is that we have, between town and school staff, over 12 FTEs dedicated to payroll in any given payroll cycle. And that's, as you know, right, it's FTEs, it's not 12 individuals, but that's, very intense amount of people to process payroll. We're still using manual timesheets and leave slips and things like that from across the organization. And our goal is to automate those processes and redirect the amount of time that it's taken to higher level work. So I haven't set a target whether, it's going to go down to, 6 or something like that. But that's an initiative that we can explore as we move forward. Once I get a better handle on, how the process will play out.
Yeah, because the general follow-up here.
Yeah.
Just, I think it would be helpful because I think it's a great area to explore because in general, you're just saying, hey, I'm looking for cost savings across the organization. So whether, if you have a goal of what you think you can achieve, or just documenting those achievements along the way where you can actually say, hey, we actually found, just like you said, we had 6 full-time equivalent resources that we can now actually put on this other initiative that we were not able to get to or whatever it is. I think it shows that we're collectively trying to do work as far as that, we're trying to be disciplined with the financials, and we're actually looking at ways to improve along that. So I think that would be helpful. I think in general for all those, just to kind of quantify how do you define success? How do you know if after this you got to a point where you thought you could get to?
Sure.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Musicard, a lot in your segment 3, anything you feel was sort of needs to be carried forward in terms of continuing to explore or build on? I know that this is somewhat fluid. It's not
Yep.
sort of a start, stop, but anything in particular that?
I think that the only things that I would kind of mark as closer to being finalized is the asset management system that we've put in place, right? Leveraging our OpenGov platform and, bolting on a module associated with that. I think it's going to pay dividends. Everything else was more of a exploration in the last 12 weeks to set us up. We were hoping to be able to get the $250,000 to be able to take on some of these things more diligently and specifically in the first 12 weeks and throughout the course of fiscal year 26. So I think that's a long way of saying all this will continue forward as we move into the fiscal year to actually build those results, and we'll do a better job of quantifying some of those results per Mr. Richards' questions.
I asked one more question on the meeting management side. Kevin, is that like an AI tool I think I've seen? Is that what you're exploring?
We are exploring that, yeah, for staff level work and then also in public meetings and getting it to a place to augment staff and then determine if it can supplant staff.
Okay.
Anything else? We can move on to the next agenda item.
Oh, can I ask one question on segment? This was on segment, the new segment for this year, the FY26. Is that okay? So, unlike the key priorities 3, when you say explore, are these going to have more defined deliverables? I know you kind of mentioned that before, but when you say explore information technology consolidation,
Yes.
as far as what that.
Yeah, I can put more detail associated with that and come back to the board at your meeting on the 7th with a little more meat on the bone if that's what you'd like. And I can talk a little bit about that. It is really considering the consolidation of either programs or the full departments and staffs between the town and school IT services, right? cybersecurity being a key area that we would like to do on a more unified basis between both entities. I know there's some differences between Selco and municipal operations, and then even bigger differences between those two and schools, given some sensitivity, but that's what we're targeting.
So
Trying to reduce
would the
redundancy.
output of it be more like a recommendation that would come out of that? This is a recommendation of how to proceed?
Yeah, a recommendation or an actual plan to do the
Okay.
consolidation, but it will take buy-in from, the superintendent and
Sure.
Selco general manager.
I have a question, as I think a follow-up to this thread of your goals. I'm wondering if you could maybe share some, I think you had like an AI
Summit?
Yes. I was going to say convention, and that's
Yeah.
not the right word. I was wondering if you could share maybe some highlights from that, even high level of what you learned, your takeaways. And then if we have or are in the process of developing an AI policy for the town, and if that would be unified across, schools and Selco and municipal, or if that's
Yep.
individualized.
So the AI Summit brought together about 25 public sector officials from across the region to have a conversation around the use of artificial intelligence in municipal operations, and then just kind of, I'll say, digital transformation that is more common or has been common, for the last 10 plus years of moving away from analog processes and digitizing not only records but business processes like we have through OpenGov and things like that. When it comes to AI, I think there was kind of two key points of discussion and how local government goes about utilizing AI in the future, given the sensitive data sets that we have, and concern with sharing personal information from those data sets. So those boil down to what I'll call, a grassroots effort where we're partnering with companies who are interested in entering the municipal space to develop technology specific for municipalities. So I'll call that the grassroots approach. And the second approach would be a trusted partner approach, where we're leveraging work that software providers are already doing to enhance their own systems, which we would be able to leverage because it is going to take the place of some of the things that we do through our human resources. So if you think about a building permit that comes in, we know that OpenGov, who we purchase software from, is working on artificial intelligence to automate those processes behind the scene, analyze the permits, identify permits that have sat for a period of time and notify staff, take action and notify the applicant, review narratives and plans and associate those with the building code. So all those things are happening. So it's not that we settle on either approach, but one of those, the grassroots effort, obviously is a little more challenging, and we need to make sure that we have better data quality and firewalls and protections in place while, if we would take that approach on for any particular purpose. But there is some exciting things going on, even here in Massachusetts, with the work that MIT and Harvard is doing in those areas. But, the trusted partner approach is probably where we're going to gain the most ground in the near term by, those folks making those investments. We're starting to see private sector companies spending, upwards of 20% on their budget to really get ahead of each other, and we're just not able to do that. So government will be a little bit slower. We need to be a little bit more cautious. We don't have a policy in place right now, but it'll be the key work of the AI working group, or key initiative of the AI working group. And that may also lead us to trying to identify value that would be associated with using a particular AI platform for Shrewsbury that would be internal to us and not just like a ChatGPT where your data could be sent elsewhere. So it would be a platform, could be like ChatGPT, but it would be the enterprise platform that's, you know, just used for Shrewsbury and through their, what they call their pro license, and is locked down and understands our data, but doesn't share it back to the learning model. So a lot to think about, but I just want to make sure that we're keeping a reasonable pace and not allowing the technologies to get too far ahead of us, because I do think they'll be ever-present and meaningful in the future for our operations.
I appreciate you exploring that, and also your other areas that you've explored in this cycle. I'm a fan, as I've said, of the 12-week cycles that you've implemented. Really helps us, I think, helps us and helps you keep track of the work that's being done across the fiscal year. So, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Just a quick question on the water and the sewer treatment plant and the capacity there. Am I correct that the capacity is actually greater than what was initially projected? And where are we
Yeah.
in terms of an expansion, discussion of an expansion?
Yeah, so when we looked at the capacity analysis itself, it indicated that on average, we were using about 80% of the permitted flow. So that is a triggering point for us notifying DEP that we're there, and puts us into the mode where we need to start to take actions to either reduce flow so we can maintain it, you know, under the permitted cap, or identify opportunities for expansion. And one of the greatest opportunities and one of the key initiatives that has come from that is that we're actually working with Franzaretti, who's on the Water Treatment Plant Board, and he's spearheading an initiative with WPI to audit our inflow and infrastructure, or inflow and infiltration program. Inflow and infiltration is, you know, basically clean water or groundwater that makes its way into our sewer system that contributes to the total flow, and therefore works against the total permitted capacity. So he's working with WPI students to help us find, I think, more efficient and optimized ways to reduce II in our system. We've been working on it for over 10 years, and he's really having the students go back and analyze the data and see what was effective and where we still have work to do. So the good news is if we can reduce that inflow and infiltration, then we're not actually at 80%, because a significant portion of that, especially in peak rainstorms, is actually clean water that we don't want in the system. And we may be able to operate for a longer time under the current permit conditions, which would be obviously much cheaper than expanding the plant. And we actually don't even know if we will be able to expand the plant and get an EPA permit. So that initial exploration is occurring at the same time.
Why would that be?
Physical capacity.
Is it space?
Yeah, and within sewer right now, the recharge of the water and how that happens is one of the biggest challenges. And so they don't like us to directly discharge back into rivers and streams right into the Assabet, so they'd like for a percentage of our cleaned water to be injected back into the groundwater system and natural aquifers to be further cleaned before it gets into, you know, a surface water system. So whether we have places to do that and opportunities to do that in Westboro or other places is going to be a challenge for our next permit.
Thank you. Great that Franzaretti is
Yeah, he
willing
really
to take this
stepped
on.
up.
I think he's
Yep.
been on this wastewater treatment board for, I think, 20 years.
Yep.
And so he certainly is well qualified, and appreciate his time and effort in trying to pinpoint where that extra capacity is going.
Absolutely.
Moving on to agenda item number 11, which is to review and act to adjust the town manager's compensation for fiscal '26. So board members received a memo from Christina Ordung, who is the Assistant Town Manager for Human Capital. As part of the approved fiscal '26 operating budget, all non-union employees will receive a 2% cost of living adjustment and a performance-based salary adjustment. The board completed its review of the town manager on April 29th, and at that time, his performance was ranked as exceeds expectations. And for employees who receive a review of exceeds expectations, the performance-based salary adjustment is an additional 3%. Therefore, it is the recommendation that the town manager's salary be adjusted by 5%, resulting in a fiscal '26 salary of $243,284.03. Any questions or discussions? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board adjust the town manager's salary for FY '26.
Second.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I don't need to read the number again, she did it already.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Item number 12 is to review and act on an intermunicipal agreement for public health services with the towns of Grafton and West Boylston. I'll ask Mr. Mizikar to walk us through this agreement.
Sure. So, board members, there are two separate agreements, individually with the town of Grafton and the town of West Boylston. And Shrewsbury is taking over the central leadership role for public health operations that was previously held by the city of Worcester. And this is a two-part process. This first part is the operational side of public health services. So this is basically taking the opportunity to have economy of scale, and rather than Grafton, West Boylston, and Shrewsbury each having their own individual public health staff members, including department heads, field inspectors, Title V, which is septic review services, et cetera, we'll consolidate those into a single unit, which will be employees of the town of Shrewsbury. And Grafton and West Boylston will provide their local dollars to Shrewsbury to share an equal portion of the cost for those services. So this is the again, this is the operational side of it. We have similar agreements in place for other services, including animal control, where we partner with communities to share community resources, building inspector, et cetera. So this has been one of the longest standing agreements that we've had shared services with, again, primarily with and through the city of Worcester, through partnerships that were at once 14 separate communities, but in the end ended up being 4, and now we're looking to shave that down to 3, with Shrewsbury being the lead. So think of these services that are being provided as the day-to-day operations that occur through a Board of Health department, with the efficiency of serving 3 communities rather than just 1. So in total, the 3 communities will spend about $350,000 a year. The town of Shrewsbury's contribution to that is roughly $190,000, and that was appropriated in our annual budget. And then the town of Grafton will take up their agreement first, would be providing $116,000 to Shrewsbury for the services. And just generally, the services that will be provided are professional services associated with a department head level position. So we are currently seeking a regional public health director, and we'll provide professional level advice and assistance to the individual boards of health as they go about their authorities and setting individual policies for their respective communities. It includes environmental health services like food inspections and nuisance complaints, housing inspections, responding to housing complaints, public health nursing and epidemiology, communicable disease tracking, and then community health services, which really assesses and responds to risks throughout the community concerning public health issues, individual welfare, substance abuse, tobacco inspections, and working towards more proactive community health planning. And then finally, emergency preparedness, which is everything that you would think when it comes to an emergency associated with a pandemic like COVID-19 or other public health matters that local governments may need to respond to if there are physical disasters throughout the community where public health is needed. So again, these are day-to-day operational requirements. They're only local tax dollars, no grant funding involved with this intermunicipal agreement. And through these dollars, we will be funding 2 public health inspectors, a public health nurse, and a regional public health director. So as I said, the first one is the town of Grafton. All the agreements, or both of the agreements, are identical except for the amount that is paid, and that's based upon population and service requirements. And for Grafton, that will be $116,000. This is a 1-year agreement and will be reconsidered as the region matures at the end of next fiscal year.
Kevin, before we open up to questions, maybe it would be helpful just to give a brief background on how we got here in terms of what is technically not new versus what we just weren't, we were paying Worcester for services and weren't necessarily receiving the full value of what we needed. So taking this into our own control so that we can manage it
Correct.
more
Yeah.
effectively.
So what we started to see over time with our agreement with the city of Worcester is kind of a separation from what the city did and what the other 3 towns did. And it became the towns were being referred to as the region and the city was the city. And so we started losing some of the efficiencies and economy of scale in working collaboratively, because the centerpiece of that arrangement was the support that we received from the city because it was their employees. So as communications began to be challenged, I didn't feel that we were accomplishing everything that we could. We didn't have good insight and transparency into the financials and the services that were being provided, and sometimes they weren't adequately staffed. So literally the only thing that is changing through these agreements is that Worcester is no longer a part of the arrangement. Shrewsbury is the lead entity and will be hiring the staff associated with it. But this IMA that's before you is identical to the one that the board signed with the city of Worcester for our last 3-year agreement, except for the names of the parties that are involved.
Ask a question. Could you tell us how long we had a intermunicipal agreement with the city of Worcester?
I believe it was since 2011. And Shrewsbury started as the first partner in what became the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance, which again grew to 14 communities at one point. But at the start, it was just Worcester providing services to Shrewsbury, and then it expanded.
Thank you.
I have a question, actually 2 questions. The first question is actually down in Appendix B, because we're creating, just to be like, I just want to clarify the process here. So we're creating 2 separate agreements with each town just to fund the basic cores you talked about. Then my understanding is we have to sign an agreement collectively as the 3 of us by October.
Correct.
Which would then, I think, give us the $461,000 per year of the Public Health Excellence Grant funding.
That's
correct?
Yes.
Which would then be used to fund additional resources
Correct.
that are specifically there to do what? Those resources.
So to provide the services that we're unable to fully carry out with those 4 core staff, but they all fall within those same categories. So mainly what we're unable to fully fund and fully take on with just local dollars falls into the areas of emergency preparedness and community health. So that's the key areas that we're targeting in year 1. And we'll also be working to develop, the governance structure, the priorities, setting baseline data for how the region will operate with those grant dollars in year one. So it is, probably going to be about 50-50 split in the use of that fund between, services and expenses, and then personnel being the other 50%. So probably about 2 more staff members through the Public Health Excellence Grant. We're required to have a regional coordinator funded for that to oversee the grant. So we'll do that, and then within those other 2 health areas.
Okay, the follow-up here. In appendix, the attachment B, I should say, which defines the meetings, I'm just curious as to what that joint body actually is, because it specifically calls out that it's not intended to create a public body as defined by General Law 38, Section 18. So my question is, would we treat it like, when I think of a public body, meaning it has agendas and it has minutes and they're public meetings, would those meetings of that body be public meetings?
No, they would be staff level meetings. So it would be the town administrators and the appointed staff talking about operational requirements and goals and other matters that, would be like a staff level meeting or a department head meeting that I would have with, the treasurer collector or something. It's not, so the policy and so the more public side, the policy setting side, is done still through each individual Board of Health. So those meetings are going to continue. But these meetings are, what's the budget? What's the staffing levels like? What are the concerns that the inspectors are seeing? What, trends, emerging concerns are we seeing within the domain of public health from an operational standpoint?
So last clarification then. So if, for instance, then back on the beginning of it, it talks about grants, about applying for grants that, if awarded, the parties would comply with the requirements. Would the individual boards of health then be the ones responsible for that grant? Because you're essentially
Correct.
binding a community to the provisions, and I would want to make sure that if you're going to do that, that the public is aware. So you're saying that that part would be done by the individual boards of health before that would actually go ahead and get agreed upon.
So each individual grant, would have its own characteristics and requirements, and if a public body and public oversight through public meetings would be required, then we certainly would do that, and that is the case through the Public Health Excellence Grant. So the Public Health Excellence Grant defines that, each Board of Health shall designate a member and a backup, and they shall govern the expenditures of the Public Health Excellence Grant. And they shall conduct their business in accordance with the open meeting law. So we will have to comply with that when it comes to public health. But again, this is the operational, side of it, and we're not spending those grant dollars. So it really is truly akin to a Shrewsbury department getting appropriation from town meeting, and then me having a monthly meeting with them and, tracking their goals, progress, and policies, procedures, standards from an operational standpoint.
Okay.
Board members, are we comfortable with voting on the agreements as currently drafted?
Yeah,
As
before we
we
move forward,
noted.
can I just want to make a comment that I think the plan is very well thought out. I think we've talked about it quite a bit. We talked about it prior to town meeting, at town meeting, when the appropriation was part of the annual budget. So it's, been discussed at Finance Committee, public hearings. I think it's, mirroring what other states do, right? Other states don't have these like every individual town having their own health department, right? I think it's going to make us more effective to be able to partner this way with Grafton and West Boylston, and also provide us with better service than we were getting in the current agreement with Worcester. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Mizikar, for thinking through how to better serve Shrewsbury and finding the right communities to partner with in this new model.
have some questions and comments. Mr. Mizikar, I echo my colleagues' sentiments. I think that this is very well thought out and appreciate the work that you've done with this. I do have some questions. I'm wondering where will these individuals, where will their offices be? I don't know if you've thought that far.
Yeah, so our plan is to backfill the recreation space that's going to be vacated when they go to the Raystone Post. So they'll be on the second floor of the town hall with direct access from the Department of Public Works service window. Likely we'll have the public health nurse spend a significant portion of their time in Shrewsbury at the Council on Aging, because there's obviously a good connection between that population and the services of a public health nurse.
Thank you for that. That is helpful. I, near the end of our agreement with Worcester, it was noted that they spend a little bit more time in Worcester than they did in the regional, in the partner communities. Yep. And so I guess I want to make sure that we don't fall into that same sort of cycle. So I am wondering if you have thoughts on that, or I see in here that, for example, that I think I lost it, but the individual boards of health, they're not necessarily required to go. How often did the Worcester one come to our boards of health?
So nearly every meeting we had one representative from the city of Worcester there. It wasn't always the public health director, but
Right.
it will be the goal to have as many of the key staff, public health nurse, public health director, and then environmental health present at each one of those meetings that we can. From a staffing standpoint, each individual municipality also has their own administrative staff member that's funded through their individual local budget, and that will continue. And then the public health nurse will be rotating throughout the 3 communities on a regular basis. And they need to do some of their work, obviously, virtual or, electronically on the computer, but they will have a presence. We are planning to staff with 2 public health inspectors. And it worked out very well once we got a program in place where one was dedicated full-time to Shrewsbury, and then one split their time 50-50 between Grafton and West Boylston, and that's kind of worked out really well with the workload. But then one of the key positions through the Public Health Excellence Grant, which, is required, is a shared services coordinator, and they will be one of the higher level management staff that's within sharing their time equally between all 3 communities. So, and that's the goal for all staff, but depending on the workload of the public health director, since they will have professional dedicated office space here with a private office, they will tend to spend a little bit more time on average here than they would in another community where they don't have that office set up.
That's helpful. Thank you. I guess I don't want our other communities to do what we did to.
Yeah, of course. Yep, none of us want that to happen.
And then I think just my last question, I was curious about if perhaps in the previous agreement with Worcester, if they ever collaborated with SYFS, and if not, is there an opportunity there, or is that totally like a different angle, I guess?
There was some partnerships with SYSF, but I think we will have an opportunity for them to be closer and more collaborative. I actually had a meeting with Mr. Kalin last week from SYSF, and we talked about this opportunity. So once we get folks stood up and in positions, that will be an early introduction that we make for the public health director to see where partnerships can be built.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Can I ask one last question? If the grant isn't renewed, have we planned already as far as how those roles would be staffed from that point moving forward?
So we're strategically staffing the minimum required individuals with these recurring dollars. And then the Public Health Excellence Grant will be more discretionary type positions. But what the key work over the next 2 years will be to define what the needs of the communities are, what the gap is, and what services we need to provide to get the communities where they want to be, and then the financial model that will be required for that. So that is really important to do within the next 24 months to make it sustainable. Public health has a, I guess a rich portfolio of grants that we can apply for, and the city certainly didn't operate the Regional Alliance any single year without some level of grant supporting staff, but we want to make sure that we do what I think the question is that you're asking is, how do we make it sustainable over time with that core staff that we need to carry out the responsibilities for each community? And that is something that is important, because we aren't able to do that on year one with local dollars. But within the first year of the Public Health Excellence Grant, as we're kind of working on that budget, will be to bring in a consultant to do the health assessment that is, data rich, both quantitative and qualitative, and set goals for the regional group.
I think we recognize there's a lot of sort of sensitivity around public health. On one hand, you clarified that this is sort of the operational side, and it is creating those efficiencies that we've been talking about, where we really maximize, optimize taxpayer investments, but really looking at the broad range of services that are under this, but really focusing on population health, resident health, safety, inspections, there's a whole host of things. But I think, we had a resident speak to us, at the beginning of this meeting, and I think we obviously want to continue to ensure that residents know that, major policies, will continue to go through the Board of Health.
Absolutely.
And that we're actually looking to sort of have control, local control, and not give up local control. So recognizing that, again, we just want to make sure residents feel like they have a path to engage with the town.
Yeah.
On things that they have opinions on.
Yes. I mean, I think, the work of public health, I understand the sensitivity towards it. I was a part of the Special Commission on Local and Regional Public Health. I helped author and draft the blueprint for public health excellence and SAFE 1.0 and 2.0. There was no pharmaceutical influence in that process. I worked with legislators from across the state to craft and shape and redline and edit and work hand in hand and share documents together with, Senator Comerford and Representative Kane and Senator Lewis. This was a local initiative. This wasn't this wasn't outside actors imposing something on Massachusetts. It was a grassroots initiative, started through a piece of legislation in 2015.
Board members, if there's no further comments, I will entertain a motion.
I move the board sign the intermunicipal agreement for public health services with the towns of Grafton and West Boylston.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item number 13 is to review and act on a form of government study committee charge. So the purpose of this committee is to conduct a comprehensive review of our current structure. Town manager, select board, representative town meeting that we originally adopted in 1953, and to evaluate whether it continues to effectively serve the needs of our community. The process will include the review of other governance models and input from Shrewsbury residents. We have discussed this for quite some time. We talked about it in a recent workshop, and we landed on a committee of 11 members. including 5 town meeting members, 5 at-large resident members, and 1 select board member. And the goal is for the committee to deliver a report to the select board within 12 to 18 months, which will include comprehensive findings and research, public input and community engagement summaries, and actionable recommendations. Mr. Mizikar, you drafted the draft charge for our consideration. Anything additional that you want to mention?
Yeah, so I think there's a few differences in this charge, given the, not that not all our boards and committees are important, but this is a rather large initial step in reviewing the key facets of how we operate and govern ourselves locally. So I think there's some more details than you would normally see in a charge, and those fall into what the board would be laying out as requirements for public engagement, stakeholder outreach, how the committee would work through subcommittees, the reporting requirements, and then what's in the final deliverable. And it's not completely unique. The board instituted, a more specific charge when it came to matters of diversity, equity, and inclusion several years ago. But again, given the importance of looking at the town's governance structure that has been in place, since 1953 and should be looked at this time, but, it could have some significant impacts to how we have operated primarily since that time. I think there's just a little bit more detail here. And again, as the chair mentioned, it is a recommendation back to the board. This is not a charter study committee, which is a formal process to actually change the governance structure. This is a preliminary step that may lead to that if that is a recommendation that the board accepts.
Right, and just to clarify, it's not our decision to change our form of government,
Correct.
but you're right, the recommendation comes back to us, and then we can then decide if we bring that forward to town meeting and pursue the special act. Any comments, questions? I mean, some of the genesis of this was when a certain resident did a citizen's petition to look at, what was it, elected planning board? So, I don't know, this is your moment.
I know.
You
Then
wanna
Justin
say?
had to find he went back in the archives and found the hand-drawn with a protractor circles from the org chart, 1953.
Maybe
Unbelievable.
I'll show you where I found it.
I thought it was one of those. I heard it was in one of these drawers behind you, but I don't know if that was true. But the outcome could also just to be clear, it doesn't have to change the form of government, but you could have a charter. If you actually want to go change the Town Manager Act separately and say that the form is fine,
Sure.
that could also be the output that says, and what does that look like? That would just be a charter review committee, or what is the act? Well, I guess, can you explain the difference between
Yeah.
saying, hey, we're not going to, either A, we should look at changing the form of government, or B, there's a lot of things that need to be modernized
Yep.
in the original acts of 1953.
I think that's an interesting question that would need to be explored with legal counsel. How, and the question that I'm thinking in my head is how substantially or how much could you change within the Town Manager Act and quote, update the special legislation without, counsel at the state level saying, you may say you're modifying this, but you're actually completely redoing this and changing, so much within it that you really do need to go back to all the residents and have a referendum vote to update it, right? Because that's the key difference. If you're gonna formally change the form of government, you need to go back to all voters through a referendum process, not just amend the legislation that's in place. So I would say over the years, there's been tweaks and adjustments to the Town Manager Act that didn't rise to that level. So I think it's how much change that would need to be made from the recommendations or the outcomes of the next step, whether or not it would fall into a full charter review or an amendment that would be permissible.
And that would be a separate committee after this, correct? That you would find, either way?
Yes.
You found a
Yeah,
charter review committee, or you'd found,
And charter review committees are defined in state law as it is on, they're an elected body that, is selected from among the voters and put in place with specific timeline and charge and, votes and process. So it's a rather rigorous process if that's the direction that is ultimately pursued.
I'm glad we're doing it. I mean, I think it is something that I know was brought up in town meeting. I'm not going to take credit. It was another town meeting member actually mentioned it specifically in that town meeting. But, I think as we've seen, right, throughout referendum processes, we've seen issues around the municipal facilities about the voter guides, how those are done, and that's all driven by portions of the special act. So I think there's a lot of things in there that should be modernized, or could choose to be modernized. Make it clearer as how we operate. Not saying structurally that we have deficiency, but who knows what the committee will find out. So I'm glad that we're, it's a nice broad view of the community. I think that we'll be able to participate, and I think it's been pretty exciting here over the next 12 to 18 months if you're into that thing, I guess.
Well, I agree. It'll be an interesting analysis, and it will certainly inform us directionally where we're going. So if we maintain this current form, and then, the next step would be, are there specific changes or considerations that should be looked at? But, I mean, this is Massachusetts, so when it does come to town government, it's not like we have carte blanche to, design it any way we want. But the committee will be given sort of those guardrails to sort of look at what the alternate options are. But I think given the growth and the size of the town, great to take a fresh look at it and determine whether or not the structure is right for our future focused strategy, and so we can go from there.
I just have a question. So this is a 12 to 18 month timeline, and I know we're going to be appointing 5 representative town meeting members. What happens if someone doesn't get reelected to town meeting? Because I hesitate to then replace them. I feel like, someone who's starting this, it would be great if the people who start it see it through to the end. I don't know if we need to somehow codify that in here, that they could continue their work even if they weren't a town meeting member anymore. I mean,
That's a good point.
right, because it's like you've done 12 months of work and you didn't get reelected, and now we have to fill it with someone who hasn't been part of it all along.
Can we modify it, just
I agree.
note that,
At the time of,
Yeah,
at the time of appointment.
of appointment.
Yeah.
Okay, that would work. I think that would work.
Yep.
I also know that it doesn't say anything in here, right, but I don't want to get into a situation where we appoint people and then they decide it's not for them and they don't stay with it through the whole thing. I know you can't, force someone to stay and life happens, but I don't know if there's a way to sort of lay it out there that the expectation is, if you're applying for this, you have the intention at the outset to see it through until its completion. I just think that consistency of the membership is going to be important to the final product.
One suggestion that I would have is, we could really emphasize that in the job ad, and then, in the discussions that are had in the selection of the committee, I think reinforcing that. And I know we do an appointment letter to committee, like, we can try to hit it on all those phases, but definitely in the job ad, laying out the expectations and
Right.
clearly putting the 12 to 18 month timeline in that.
Yeah, I just think, if others agree, right? I know we don't have that expectation with certain boards and committees, but this just seems to be one where you would want people to be in it for the long haul.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I think that, important to stress that there's going to be a lot of public engagement. So folks who want to still participate, they may not be able to serve, they may not serve on the committee, but they'll still have plenty of opportunities to engage with that committee to share their thoughts. Because I think that, as a board in our workshop, we had a lot of discussion on this, and, appreciate the balance that we have in having some representative town meeting members who are folks who have local government experience, and then having residents who are at large who, perhaps maybe they have had a local government experience, but I would like to see some, folks who maybe are not as tuned in to really be a part of this process, and hope that as we do the posting for this, that we do all that we can to try to really capture those people who are not really tuned in. Like, I don't know if there's bulletin boards in every store or grocery stores, but I would think that we should try to post things everywhere so that we can try to get a wider net.
I think
That's
when
where my
we
head is at.
met with the Division of Local Services in terms of scoping some of this out, they made a great recommendation about going to the people, so.
Right.
In addition to advertising, but you're right.
Right.
Sort of trying to proactively outreach. Maybe something else we can put in the posting is just outlining expectations. So if we assume monthly meetings, semi-monthly meetings, you know, average number of hours. I know it varies, but to Beth's point about just setting expectations so people kind of know what they're signing up for. I don't think it's going to be too onerous, and we did note that town staff will be assigned to it to really help move things along as well.
My understanding too is what I've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, the Collins Center or some body like that through DLS participates in a lot of these, correct? Because I've seen them and there are some long Zooms, there's some time commitments there that they do put on. So I think that's very valid.
So, Mr. Mizikar, you can make the edit. Should we take a motion to, or should we just wait for the next meeting? I don't know how critical
I
it
mean,
is to get this posted.
We can put the document up on the screen if you're interested. I just made a suggestion that would be something like the select board shall appoint an 11-member committee, the members of which at the time of their appointment will be as follows: 1 member of the select board, 5 representative town meeting members, and 5 residents at large. That may not be perfect, so if you want to
Select board shall appoint an 11-member committee, the members of which at the time of their appointment will be as follows. 1 select board member, well, yeah, 5 representative town meeting members, 5 residents at large.
The only minor thing is what if one of the select board members does not get reelected?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'd want
I
the-
just kind of paused on that.
I know
one.
I
That
did it.
might
That's
be
why
the
I said it,
one-
but I didn't
That
wanna
might be the
say
one
that.
that,
We could
that we
stop.
changed, yeah,
Yep.
so,
We should take some time then.
yeah, why don't we just ask Kevin to edit it and redistribute, and we can vote at our next meeting.
I just had a question about, you know, what type of like non-voting, like advisory roles or staff might we expect to work with this group? Like, you know, will town council be working with them? Will we engage DLS and things like that? Is there anything like to anticipate, like, you know, folks other than the appointed members engaging, and the administrative support staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the above. Whenever I was writing the charge, I contemplated, you know, having the committee provided, you know, some type of initial request or recommendation for funding at the fall town meeting this year. So that's something that we could consider. I don't know if they'll be ready to do that, and, you know, it's a big request, but we all know that that may be important if they're gonna, you know, bring the Collins Center or someone else on board to support their efforts. So I guess that would be a point of discussion. But from a staff level, you know, I think the charge lays out that, you know, through me, everyone's available.
Okay. And then just one more question. At any point in the process, you know, if we're looking at an 18-month deliverable, is there any point in the process where, you know, we would potentially ask for an update to the select board or anything like that?
Yes, it does need to come in after what I've determined, or what I've called an initial assessment, which identifies anticipated resources that the committee need to fulfill its charge, completed the comparative governance research, and then prior to the submission of the final recommendation. So I guess in this milestone reporting area, if that may be a place to clarify particular parameters, if you'd like to drive them towards a fall town meeting. But it's kind of like, how do you think you're going to carry out your work? And then what resources would you need to do that?
Okay.
We good to move on? All right. Item number 14 is to review and act on the road closure request from Wes Stoskoff and Brian Farrell for the corner of Oak Ridge Way and Knollwood Drive on Saturday, July 26, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. with a rain date of August 2nd, 2025 for a neighborhood block party. This is the 4th annual block party for the neighborhood, and there have been no issues in prior years. So if there's no comments or discussions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 15 is to review and act to approve the warrant to police officer and/or dog officer pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 153, for a one-year term to expire on June 30th, 2026. This is an annual item that requests the board to approve the warrant to the animal control officer, currently Keith Elms, for a one-year term.
Move approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 16 is to review and act to appoint a designee from the Select Board to the Affordable Housing Board of Trustees for a 2-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2027. This is a board of 5 members, and including 3 at-large residents, a designee of the town manager, and a designee from the Select Board. Mr. Garcia currently serves as our designee, and his term expires on June 30th. So it is our responsibility to appoint a designee with a 2-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2027. Mr. Garcia?
I'm very interested in continuing to serve on the Affordable Housing Trust. I think that we've done some good work on my time there, and we had the Shrewsbury Housing Authority here earlier, so really looking forward to building our partnerships, not just with the SHA, but also with the CPC and others, to create and support our residents, create affordable housing and also support our residents in this community. So,
Well, I think you've done a great job, so if no one objects, I would support you continuing as the designee.
No objection.
Okay.
Okay, I move the board appoint Carlos Garcia to serve as the board's designee to the Affordable Housing Board of Trustees with a 2-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 17 is to review and act to appoint a delegate and an alternate member to the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, which is the regional planning agency for 40 communities in Worcester County, including Shrewsbury. Each member community is allotted delegates proportional to its population to vote on policy decisions. Shrewsbury has 3 delegate members, 2 appointed by the planning board and 1 appointed by the select board. The select board may also appoint an alternate member who may vote if a delegate member is absent. Michelle Conlon is currently our delegate member, and I think we've historically chosen not to assign
We used to
an
have someone
alternate
from the
delegate.
planning board. Do we not have someone from the planning board who does this anymore?
So they have 2 members.
And we have
And we
one
have
in it.
1 plus an optional alternate.
Like if Michelle was not available, if we wanted to send, but I think we've always kind of felt like 1 was enough, but
At
I'll throw,
most meetings, it's myself and 1 or 2 members from the planning board who are in attendance. So, and often our planning staff.
Do we get more hours if we have more people there?
I don't think so. I think it's only if, if Shrewsbury is there, we get hours. So I don't think it makes a difference if there's 3 people present or 1. Sometimes there are times where I am the only representative from Shrewsbury, and there are times that I'm not able to attend that I know somebody, one of the other Shrewsbury representatives is there. So having an alternate is helpful at times, but I'm not aware of any that we have totally missed.
Michelle, would you like to continue?
I would love to. I'm really enjoying the work. There's a lot to learn, and it's good work. So I would love to continue as the delegate.
If everyone is okay with that, does anyone want to be the alternate delegate? Do we feel?
Don't all jump up at once. Anybody meetings are public. Anybody is welcome to attend. Sometimes I flag particular meetings. If there's affordable housing things, I'll flag it for Mr. Garcia or things like that. So sometimes economic development stuff I'll flag for you and Ms. Cassavant. So anybody is welcome to attend them anytime. So you don't have to be a delegate. It's just it's the members who are voting members. So
Excellent.
yeah.
All right.
All right, well, thank you,
Thanks for-
Michelle, for doing it.
Yes.
I know it's extra meetings, right? And it's
Yeah.
extra time away from your family, and
Yeah.
it's an extra responsibility. So I very much appreciate you doing this, and I move that we appoint Michelle Conlon to serve as a delegate member to the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item 18 is to review and act on the following town manager appointments, and I'll read them, Beth, in hopes that it will
I'll
spare
just
you.
say so moved.
Yeah. So I'm going to list those that we are being asked to confirm. I just wanted to note that our policy is to advertise all board and commission seats with expiring terms via a general call for interest on the town website and other communication methods, while also asking incumbents if they are interested in reappointment. So for these positions that we're about to review, as well as the select board appointments under the next agenda, item 19, the incumbent members indicated they were interested in reappointment, and no applications were submitted in response to the general call for interest, unlike some of the other appointments that we will be reviewing. So it is the recommendation to confirm the town manager appointments. Diane Tonelli, a seat on the Commission on Disabilities with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Suzanne Meyer on the Commission on Disabilities with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Emily Petro with a seat on the Conservation Committee, the 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Chris DeLauder to a seat on the Conservation Commission with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. And Gail Ann Aslanian to a seat on the Historical Commission with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So agenda item number 19 is to review and act on the following select board appointments. Melanie Petrucci to a seat on the Historical District Commission with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Robert Pine to a seat on the Insurance Advisory Committee with a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026. Barbara Feiner to a seat on the Sustainability Committee with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Elizabeth McCollum to a seat on the Tax Relief Fund Committee with a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Stephen Madaus as Town Council with a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026. John G. Anath as Constable with a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026. Raju Anath as Constable with a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026. Matthew Kastner as Constable with a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026, and Robert Esposito as a Constable with a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026.
I just want to note in the spreadsheet that you were keeping that John Manzi did not seek to be reappointed as a constable, and he has been a constable for as long as I can remember, and I do want to thank him for his dedicated service in that role. Appreciate all the work that he's done. And I move that we approve the list as you read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So the next 3 agenda items are appointments for which there were multiple candidates, and our practice is to have board members independently and confidentially vote prior to our meeting, and then Mr. Dobson compiles the voting, which is shared with the chair immediately before the meeting. So item number 20 is to review and act to appoint 1 high school member to the Sustainability Committee to serve a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026. And the candidate receiving the most votes was Prabab Vadalamundi, and I know I'm not pronouncing that, so I apologize, but the first name that is on our agenda.
I move the board appoint Prabhav Sai Vadlamudi as the high school member to the Sustainability Committee to serve a one-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 21 is to review and act to appoint 4 members to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. So based on the votes that came in, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Samantha Golding and Safa Khan to a 3-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2028. Martha Deering to a 2-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2027. And John Chenier to a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And item 22 is to review and act to appoint 1 high school member to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee to serve a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026. And the candidate receiving the most votes was Roger De La Cruz Oliveras.
I move that we appoint Rogelio de la Cruz Oliveras as a high school member to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee to serve a 1-year term set to expire on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I want to note, as always, thank you so much to the residents that submitted for these positions. It's greatly appreciated. We will continue to sort of look for opportunities to engage these residents. So hopefully we will find an opportunity in the near future. I just want to say in particular to the 3, 4, 5 high school students that submitted, I'm so impressed. Like, I mean, I really need to up my game. I've been a resident a long time, but I was like, my goodness, like they're so impressive and so accomplished, and it's so wonderful to see. So I really appreciate it.
I think the hardest appointments that we have to make are the high school students, because these kids are just absolutely incredible. And I think it's a testament, you know, to their families and our community, but our Shrewsbury Public Schools, these kids are just absolutely incredible and have these resumes at, 16, 17 years old that, it's just incredible. So thank you to everybody who applied, and I hope that we see their names again soon. So.
They're going to be ruling the world. I mean, they're great. All right, next we'll move on to correspondence. Item number 23 is an email dated June 9th, 2025 from Christina Zarobi to Amherst Road regarding public statement regarding ICE. So noted. Email dated June 10th, 2025 from Mark Majori, 19 Gordon Road regarding update on traffic study in Farallon neighborhood. So noted. Email dated June 10th, 2025 from Anupa Desai, 31 Stony Hill Road regarding damage due to regular blasting on Centec Boulevard for past many months. When I say so noted, we also note that town staff does follow up with residents as applicable, so please don't think I'm just ignoring them. Number 26 is an email dated June 11th, 2025 from Kathy Fitzgerald, 38 Colonial Drive regarding support. House 3551, Senate 3206, House 2413, so noted. Email dated June 19th, 2025 from Naomi Halpern, 131 Stony Hill Road regarding smart meter concerns and opt-out option. So noted. An email dated June 20th, 2025 from Patricia Minton, 3 Partridge Hill Road regarding Casella. That concludes our agenda, and if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned. Good evening.